Good evening. Thank you for joining the March 11th edition of the Board of Selectmen, Highway Commissioners, and Sewer Commissioners meeting. As always, this meeting is being recorded. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First on the agenda, we have the acceptance of minutes, 2/26/24 and 2/29/24 joint. Mr. Marcy.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes of February 26, 2024, and the joint meeting of February 29, 2024.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next on the agenda, citizen comments. Is there a citizen in the audience today that would like to speak on something that is not on this evening's agenda? Mr. Clark?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Richard Clark, Airport Road, somewhat related to an agenda item, so I'm going to beg your indulgence, if I may. As you may have noticed, we're having a rather unusual winter season. One of the good things about the snow was that it used to hide the litter. Without the snow, obviously, the litter is in full view, and it is pretty much everywhere. Again, I know I'm dancing around the agenda item here somewhat, but I think, unfortunately, there needs to be a culture change, if you will. I know we've not gone ahead with anything as far as plastic bags, nor with nips, but somehow the message has to get out there that what is happening to the roadways of the town of Dudley is unacceptable. And I don't know what we do with that or how we do that. I have some suggestions. I don't know if we need a committee separately to consider something along those lines. But if we don't do something and expect it to change, you know what the definition there is. That's about all I've got to say. Thank you at this time.
Mr. Clark, before you step down, if I could ask you, could you specify areas in Dudley where you've noticed the litter?
Oh, well, if you're going down 197 towards Quinnebog Courthouse, that seems to be a fairly common dumping ground. There is something that looks to be sort of a de facto junkyard, if you will, if you go out Oxford Ave before you make the turn by the cemetery to go across up to Bigelow Road in Webster, and you'll see mattresses, old tires, looks like vehicles of some sort that have been discarded. And I don't know who owns that or necessarily what the function is supposed to be of that, but it's an eyesore at least. Granted, in a few months we'll have the leaf coverage, so it won't be quite as visible, but I don't know that we want to depend on Mother Nature to provide snow in the winter or leaves in the spring to cover up our sins.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Clark.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else, citizen, have anything? Seeing nothing. Next on the agenda, public hearing. This is a petition for joint or identical pole locations.
Excuse me, National Grid canceled tonight's meeting with a poll
Okay.
hearing. They're on duty for storm,
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Makes sense.
so they would continue it to April 1st.
It's continued to April 1st. Thank you.
No fooling. Gonna miss me when I'm gone, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Next on the agenda, Paul Wheelock, Dudley Conservation Land Trust, permission to plant trees on town property. Mr. Wheelock, wherever you prefer. Stand, sit, whatever you prefer, sir.
Good evening. My name is Paul Wheelock. I'm on the board of the Dudley Conservation Land Trust. We are going to be writing a grant, a Janet Mauser Humanities Trust grant, to do some, upgrade of some of our boardwalks and some tree cutting and stuff like that. So we've been looking for a community service project. So we thought that we would request some additional funds from the Janet Mauser Trust, and we would purchase some trees to be planted around town. Probably on, whether it be at cemeteries around here, whatever. So I'm just asking if the board would be in favor of that. And obviously, I don't know how many trees we'd be getting, but we'd have to work with Highway, with MJ. They would have to plant them because we don't have the the capabilities to plant them.
Do you have any specific areas, specific trees?
Well, you know, we could use a couple trees out here. I thought maybe down near the highway building too, there's that big lawn area. That place looks like a, you know, wasteland down here. Maybe at the cemeteries. You know, we can always find spots, driving up to the, maybe put a row up, going up to the water department over there too. There's one there now, so we could probably add some more. But again, we'd have to work with highway or with Brian to find spots to put them.
Any board members have anything? What would be the next step, Mr. Ruda, for this?
Mr. Chairman, my suggestion would be to maybe assign Michelle to work with the Conservation Land Trust to come up with some proposed locations for trees. I think the board would be better served if there were a plan as to where they were gonna go. For example, if they're gonna go in cemeteries, that requires a separate board approval vote. So maybe if we have a plan of some proposed spots, we could kind of work through those and take a look at it again in the very near future.
Thank you, Mr. Ruda. I'll speak for myself, not the board. I like the idea. I like the idea of having, why wouldn't we want more trees? Something to beautify the town, and it's not costing the taxpayers anything. And you're taking the time to come forward, raise your hand, and say, I want to make Dudley a better place. Why? Personally, I don't see any negatives there. So
I'm just asking permission, you know, I just don't want to take this up on
No.
we don't want to take this up on our own.
And like Mr. Ruda said, unless any board member has anything they want to add, I think if you could work with Michelle, specific spots, and, I mean, I'm not speaking for the board, I'm in favor of this. And we get some spots, we could bring it back for a vote, if we need a vote, and go forward from there.
I'm not sure how many trees there's gonna be, because I looked at last year's pricing up at Bigelow's, so I don't know if their prices are gonna go up this year. We're gonna allocate a certain amount of money for this. That there's no guarantee that we're even gonna get that much money that we request, so it all depends on what comes out of the grant.
Understand? Anyone?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I can
Ms.
think of, obviously, the locations are important. How many, the types, and maintenance long-term. How that's gonna affect the town, the price. Highway, who's gonna do it, what it's gonna cost, and where it comes from.
We can put that all together, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, we can do that, if you want to work with Michelle on, well,
Okay.
let's see if you get the grant. If you get the grant,
Yeah, well, the grant, this has to be in by April 1st, so it's usually, so it probably won't be till May, sometime that we'll find
yeah,
out.
I'm not hearing any board members objecting to this. So go ahead, go forward, get the cash, figure out how many trees you can plant, work with Michelle, we'll come up with places and go forward with it.
All
Sound good?
right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Thank you, Paul, appreciate it. There we go. Next on the agenda, Board of Health, permission to hold Earth Day on Saturday, April 20th, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Highway Garage and Town Hall parking lot.
Good evening, Pat Hannon, your new health agent.
Hello, nice to meet you.
You folks too. So we're expanding our Earth Day efforts a little bit, just beyond picking up trash. And we'd like permission to use the back parking lot from 10:30 until 3 o'clock for some family events, some sidewalk art, some bicycle competition. People decorate their bicycles. I've spoken to the Boy Scouts. They're going to come and serve hot dogs to the people that do the trash pickup and participate in the event. And that's what we want to do, weather permitting.
Okay. Any, Mr. Sullivan?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just on the request, it says 8 to 12. So is 8 to 12 the actual drop-off for the
Eight-
Earth Day?
8 to 12 is the rubbish pickup.
Yeah, and then the rest?
And then from 11:30 till 3 o'clock, there'll be the activities in the parking lot.
All right, 'cause I just didn't see the second half.
Yeah.
And again, Mr. Chair, just like we always do, obviously with permission and support of the emergency services people, make sure it's all set up safe.
Good, good.
Thank you.
Any other board members have any comments, questions, anything? Mr. Marcy?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve permission the Board of Health to hold Earth Day on Saturday, April 20th, 2024, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Highway Garage in the Town Hall parking lot from 11 to 3.
Mr. Chairman, second with
Mr.
discussion.
Mr. Johnson, go ahead.
Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Clark, it sounds like something that would be near and dear to your heart.
Yes. Trees? I'm okay with that.
No, picking
Oh,
up rubbish on
tree-
Earth Day.
Oh, picking up rubbish.
Trees was the last thing. We're
All
back.
right, we shifted gears a
What
little
about
bit, Abby.
leaves?
Thank you for that. But, you know, there's a nice synergy here, as soon as we improve the environment. And maybe if, you know, the trees beautify the landscape such that people will think twice before they dispose of their Dunkin' Donuts refuse.
Clark, we're talking about Earth Day, picking up trash in the morning.
Yeah,
We're past the trees.
All right.
past the trees, no, I see them as somehow connected. I did something of a holistic approach. Or is that too much to go after?
No, but I do have one thing to add on the trash. So when I first started, I noticed the trash on the Dudley Webster line coming in, and I had those businesses clean up their trash and put trash barrels back in front of their businesses. Excuse me, I'm doing that as I do inspections further up the road. They've all taken their trash barrels down because people take the trash from their house and bring it to their business and throw it in their barrel. But that's the cost of doing business for these folks, and we are having them put their barrels back out. So that will help a little bit. The nip thing, that's statewide. That's just a real problem.
Great, thank you.
I would just, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I know I'm interrupting, but thank the gentleman for what he's done. And I would hope that the merchants or the folks that you've spoken to are conscientious in emptying that trash. Because it's very unsightly, obviously, when you have it mounding up and it starts finding its way back into the roadways.
It's going very well for the folks that have put barrels out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Do
you.
we have a motion and a second? Any further discussion? Mr. No? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you. Next on the agenda, review of changes based on previous public input to Airport Road grant. Police chief, fire chief, and highway superintendent provide input. Board of Selectmen vote to proceed. Good evening.
Good evening. We're just gonna set up plans here so that folks in the audience can see.
We've got tripod and such.
And I can share from my laptop. I heard that you changed systems, so.
If it's just a color plan, I got it up there.
Okay.
Is that what we're doing?
That's the one.
Okay.
Save me the trouble. And so, just for the record, my name's Greg Lucas. I'm with Ty & Bond. I'm Senior Project Manager, Professional Engineer in Massachusetts. With me is?
Ryan Case. I'm a staff engineer also with Ty & Bond.
And so, when we came last time, the initial concept that had been developed for the intersection, the sidewalk, the crosswalk, had a discontinuance of Tanyard Road and a circular turnaround so that people could turn around when they couldn't turn onto Dudley Hill Road. And so we heard from the board and from the public that there was not a very popular plan. And so we were tasked with reestablishing the connection to Tanyard Road. And I'll let Ryan explain some of the details of how the plan changed and how it's the same as what you saw before.
Yep. So just generally at the start, the dark gray that you're seeing on the plans represents the proposed roadway area. The lighter gray is the sidewalk, and the green is the proposed new or expanded landscape area. It might be a little difficult to see on the screen, but there's red lines shown that show the existing edge of roadway as it stands today, just to give you a better reference of how things would change. Starting on the right side of the plan, this four-way intersection is staying similar to how we had it shown the first time. Ideally, we're kind of narrowing up that southern Dudley Hill Road approach, and also narrowing up that golf course driveway. If you've been out there at all, you've seen it's kind of wide open, and currently Airport Road to the right and Dudley Hill Road to the south are the two stop-controlled approaches, whereas Dudley Hill Road coming from the northwest is free-flowing. So just tidying up that intersection, making it more traditional teed-up approach is what we're going for here. Keeping the sidewalk on the southern side of Dudley Hill Road, and then providing crosswalks across Dudley Hill Road to the golf course and to Airport Road. On the right side there, we show the sidewalk ending for a future connection down Airport Road. And then on the left side is where you'll see the more significant change since our last plan, teeing up Tanyard Road to Dudley Hill Road and keeping that connection. So we tried to limit the geometry changes here, just kind of reducing the radius to kind of make it perpendicular to Dudley Hill Road and make that a better intersection for people turning on or off Tanyard Road. At this location, we would have Tanyard Road as a stop control, as it is now, but Dudley Hill Road will be free-flowing. We didn't want to throw too many stop signs in such a short period on Dudley Hill Road to keep the traffic flowing there. Again, we'll have the sidewalk on the southern side with a crosswalk across Tanyard, so that anyone who's on Tanyard Road can easily access the sidewalk right there. So I'll also point out that with these revised curb lines, we also proposed some new drainage improvements. And so the drainage and the grading are what we'll be working on as we progress the design into the future sets. That's back to Greg.
Thanks, Ryan. And so the key to the project is the crosswalk, is the sidewalk connection, and the crosswalk with a connection to the golf course, the narrow driveway to the golf course, and the consolidated intersection of Dudley Hill Road and Airport Road. That narrow driveway is still 24 feet in width, so enough for a car to enter and exit, typical lane width for vehicles to pass, but not so wide that we heard last time that sometimes vehicles just kind of occupy whatever space. It's wide enough for 3 vehicles really to come in and out. This is improved over that.
Does that change at the golf course? Is that part of our setback, or is this working with them?
This would be working with the golf course. It's, if you look at the plan, there's a line that goes across that driveway and that sidewalk segment that connects to the parking lot. So part of that is their property, and so yeah, it would require cooperation with the college, with the golf course.
So, Mr. Chair, you all set? So how big a reduction are we gonna ask them to make? Like currently it's X, and we're gonna ask them to go to Y. I can't read the.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what it is today. Again, we're reducing it to 24 feet, which is a typical roadway width, 12-foot lanes in each direction. So, it still definitely provides access. There is a removal of at least one parking space. There's some consolidation where that green space is, just to create a driveway, really. It's kind of wide open right now. It's a little bit narrow at the opening to the street, but it basically opens right into the parking lot. So it essentially consolidates to create a driveway.
There's four cars plus 2 ways to drive in, so it's gotta be 50 feet plus.
Yeah, 'cause
right on the road.
Right, and I think, Mr. Chair, that was, I believe we got some feedback to that for whatever reason, entering and exit, sometimes people kind of come across, like, shorten it would help a lot, but I was wondering if they would have, assuming there's cooperation, we have a nice meeting coming up, we can ask, would they consider like my figures off the top of my head, like a little 2-foot median? That way they would really have to make one way, they could still make a left and a right, but there wouldn't be that cross.
that certainly could be accommodated where, reconfiguring that space so a median would be possible.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that big a.
We just want to make sure that there's still enough room for a fire truck to come in there, for
Right.
example,
Okay,
or whatever trucks they might be using for deliveries, but more importantly, the fire truck.
yeah, that's true, okay. Just a thought.
So the stop sign at the golf course goes away, the stop sign on Dudley Hill goes away. The only stops are Tanyard Road and that's Hall Road, I believe.
No, that's, where the crosswalk is will be a four-way stop-controlled intersection. There'll be a stop on Dudley Hill coming, I'll call it southbound, and on Airport coming westbound. A stop on Dudley Hill coming northbound, a stop from the golf course. Four-way stop-controlled intersection with the crosswalk. So that consolidates the intersection. We're narrowing some pavement, specifically in the areas where you see green shown, and adding the crosswalk, so improving for pedestrian safety.
And Tanyard is still two-way.
Tanyard is still two-way. Yep, Tanyard allows entry traffic. We looked at, again, a fire truck, a school bus, to make sure that they had enough radius there without encroaching to make those movements.
Excellent. Anyone? Anything else you'd like to go over on this before I?
The only other thing and we talked about this last time, but I'll just reintroduce it for everyone's education. This is funded by a grant from Shared Streets Program. The grant was for about $177,000. Cost estimate for this is more than that. It's less than it was last time we came. The cost estimate is about $400,000 to construct this work. Our conversations, and Mr. Ruda can confirm this, was that the excess, the overage, would be funded through Chapter 90 funds.
So this does not impact the taxpayers at all?
It's all the balance would be Chapter 90 funded, no impact.
I just want to make sure of that. Anything else you'd like to add before I open it up?
No.
Last time we had this meeting, I asked if anyone from Tanyard Road was here that wanted to speak, and I'd like to do that again this time. Is there anyone here from Tanyard Road that has any comments, questions, anything? No?
We're happy with it.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Anyone else have any questions or comments then? Mr. Clark, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Police chief and
Yeah,
fire chief were on the agenda.
Yes, thank you. There was almost a photo finish there with the hands.
They're faster than I am.
So just kind of real brief, I looked at the plans, the redesign plans. I believe we had a meeting at some point. And from the public safety aspect, I think the plans that you have in front of you are probably the best for public safety. You have the crosswalks at a controlled intersection where there's a stop sign. And if the plans continue on down the road to create a sidewalk on that side of Airport Road, you just had a development, 55 and over development go up. So I believe those people would utilize that sidewalk, go down to a controlled intersection and use that intersection to cross the road. If you were to put the sidewalk on the opposite side of the road, they would have to cross the road to get to that sidewalk. And then further down the road, you have Nelco Ave on the hill going downwards. You would have the same problem. If people had to cross the road from I take it back, Aldea to get to the sidewalk, you have that blind hill that could cause issues. But if you have that sidewalk on the side where it's on right now, I think it prevents issues down the road, and I think it just makes sense for public safety wise. I know there was some talk about the Chipper Hill has a cross-country team that runs Airport Road, Dudley Hill. I did reach out to the coach. The coach instructs his students to try to use the sidewalks. He was very happy to hear that we're having a very proactive approach to creating sidewalks in town, which we lack of. And if the sidewalks went up, he would work with the town, with his team, to reroute the way they train. So he's happy with whichever side the sidewalks go up on. So again, from my perspective, I think this is a good design for the current residents and the future residents. on Airport Road and Dudley Hill Road. That would be my 2 cents.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Clark, you're up.
All right, Chief?
He didn't raise, did you have anything? Or
No, you can go first. Oh, thank you.
going by who's putting their?
Again, Richard Clark, Airport Road. I think there's something missing here. As of 2020, the Board of Selectmen approved the creation of a Complete Streets Committee, which was effectively the planning board. We've had a number of opportunities here. The 22nd of January, there was a public meeting. The Complete Streets Committee / planning board not on the agenda. I was very surprised earlier this week, and that at one point, we did see this on the town website as a joint meeting. Not so with the agenda that I see here in front of me this evening. Somewhere, somehow that changed. Again, I think that we, as constituted as the Complete Streets Committee, if you will, in the town of Dudley, and so recognized by the Board of Selectmen, have a role to play in this. And for some reason, we don't have a voice. And if we don't have a voice, gentlemen, do we have a purpose? We might take it that far.
Mr. Chairman, is complete streets and shared streets the same thing?
I believe they're different, Mr. Ruda.
I believe we're talking about the same streets.
This is a different grant program than Complete Streets.
Thank you. Is this Safe Streets?
Yes.
Okay.
It may be a different grant program, but it's the same streets. And we are, again, identified as complete streets. I don't know how we, if we want to look at Merriam-Webster in terms of complete, we could always do that, I suppose. But again, we haven't had a voice. We were on the agenda earlier this month as I looked at the town website, and then suddenly, miraculously, I guess it's a miracle, I'm not sure of that, but we weren't there any longer. Poof, magic.
Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Clark.
Yes, sir.
You've had a chance to look at this, correct?
Yes.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts is the sidewalk should be on the other side, because I would extend it up, going up towards Center Road. And if you look at the other side, across from the golf course, what you see over there is what the Mass Department of Transportation refers to as, I think, interference, as they call it. Namely, utility poles, driveways, numerous driveways, the numbering at 16, I believe, if you actually do a count, and some of them are the U-shaped things, so maybe that counts as one, maybe not, and fire hydrants. And for ADA compliance, you're going to have to do some fancy cutting in terms of putting a sidewalk on the other side of the road, across from the golf course, going up Dudley Hill Road.
Mr. Clark, you live near here, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Which side of the road? Would your house have a sidewalk or no sidewalk?
Well, let me tell you something, actually. I thought about that, and if I look at the actuarial tables, I'll be 77 later this year. It took 50 years to get a sidewalk on Mason Road. I won't be around to see any of those, even if you cut that 50 in half. So I'm not all that concerned about where you put the darn thing, but I do think it's safer, better, cheaper, more effective use of town funds, or grant funds, if you will. Put it on the other side. If you're running the perimeter of the golf course, it's a fairly straight stretch. There's minimal in terms of those interference things that we mentioned, that they're recognized again by the Mass Department of Transportation as being in the way. Maybe your ADA compliance issues become a little bit less. Yes, there might be a cost, because as you come around the golf course, you might have to put in a wall and do something there.
Oh, that'd be a considerable cost. Mr. Clark, could I, just for open discussion, I live on the other side of the street on Airport Road.
Yes, you do.
I will not have the sidewalk. I'd love to have the sidewalk.
It's-
I'd love to. But here's the thing, like Police Chief stated, we've got that 55 and over community on the other way. Think it's hard for me to get to my mailbox? Try pulling out of Aldea or Nelco and take a left, and you're not supposed to, but people still do it. That is a dangerous place to expect someone to cross the road. The other side, that hill at Nichols College on the golf course, I wouldn't want to know how much that would cost to cut into that, to put a retaining wall, and all that side there is all trees and such. I imagine that, is it fair to say that would be much more expensive? Ish?
It would be. It would be. And I don't want to cut off Mr. Clark, but I can add more.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I will add one thing. As long as I've been on the planning board, and I have a planning board member here with me, a former member with me, I have advocated for sidewalks. You can put them any damn place you want them in this town, because we need them everywhere.
Okay.
All right? And in the comment earlier on, when you've met some years ago, and we talked about Mason Road, and the question came up, why would we want to do it now? I think for Mr. Johnson, I said, if not now, then when? And that was because originally it came up in 1969. All of the sidewalk issues in this town are overdue. All I'm saying is, we have a complete streets committee. We have that as an adjunct to the planning board. We are not involved. Apparently, I don't know, somehow, maybe Mr. Wheelock will come to us and talk about trees at some point, but we've apparently missed the boat with regards to this particular issue.
Thank you. Mr.
And we
Sullivan?
were on the agenda earlier in the month as a joint meeting.
I didn't see it.
I'm not sure how that happened. Maybe it's a typo, but it was there on the, and I've got gentlemen here can attest to the fact that it was there.
Mr. Sullivan?
I think Mr. Landry's point was very germane to the conversation. That the safe streets and complete streets are two separate, and I get Mr. Clark's point that we're talking about the same streets. But the safe street, my understanding of it, would fall directly under us as highway commissioners, whereas complete streets was the program Mr. Clark's referencing, and I don't know if Bill Scanlon's here. I don't have my glasses on. Bill here?
I think Bill's here.
Hi, Bill. So that's the joint planning board selectmen grant, and I get it, same streets, same sidewalks, just different pots of money, but different reporting and responsibilities too to each of those grants. If that makes sense. Am I right with that, Bill?
Well, yes, I think so. This grant came about from the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. They had just completed our complete streets plan, and this shared streets and spaces program had just come out from the Baker administration as part of the reaction to the COVID pandemic. And the thought was to create streets that were safer for both motorists and for pedestrians and bicyclists. So CMRPC targeted this particular intersection because it felt it sort of met the criteria of this new program better than the Complete Streets program. So they actually wrote the application, which was funded, and as Greg mentioned, we got $177,000. The intent of the program was to not make wholesale changes, but really to make sort of modest improvements to rectify existing problems. When Tyne Bond came on board, it became clear that this intersection needed, more intensive improvements than what the grant program initially would call for. And so it came about that the program fell under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen because it wasn't a complete streets grant program. It was a different DOT program, which would normally fall under the Highway Department and then the road commissioners. So that's how it kind of worked out under the jurisdiction of the town administrator and the highway superintendent to manage and oversee that program. And then, so we also haven't decided which side of the street the sidewalks would go on, and this plan doesn't preclude going on either side. I think we need to sort of think about where is the best location for the sidewalks. And what I like about this plan is that it really consolidates the intersection and makes it much safer for pedestrians to cross. And we think the primary users here will be the Nichols College students who will be coming down and going to the golf course and the restaurant there. And this makes it very convenient and safe for them to get on the sidewalk, come down to the stop-controlled intersection where there'll be a crosswalk and ADA compliant sidewalks, so that will make it safer for them to cross. So, but which side of the street the sidewalks go on, I think is a question for another day. I know Mr. Clark has some good points, and I think the fire chief and highway superintendent also have some thoughts about which side it should go on. So I think we need to have, more discussion about eventually how we're going to connect the Shepherd Hill High School with sidewalks all the way down to West Main Street. So that's kind of where we're at, but I think this plan really does a good job solving the problems at this intersection. And I think, it really deserves merit, and I hope it goes forward.
Too, Mr. Chair, thanks, Bill. I noticed too, and it always was a issue, but now that Nichols has taken the golf course back over, I see much more pedestrian traffic going across to the lacrosse field, to the baseball field. It's almost like they've green-lighted approval to park. Back when it was private, I know they used to get upset, they take the space away from the golfers. So I think, like, granted, what are we talking, 30 sporting events, maybe with football, maybe 40? I think that plays a key into, as Bill just said about the sidewalk and people going back and forth to that tan-yard section. And as you stated at the last conceptual meeting we had, Mr. Chairman, the intent someday, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ruda, is fix that sidewalk up by the cemetery, come down and come right down that side of the road. So if we put sidewalks at that intersection on the right side, but they're coming down the left side, you're heading towards the golf course, it makes less sense because you're gonna do more crossings. I think the intent someday is to, as you stated too, loop it all the way down. So if we come down by the cemetery to the intersection, then we take a left and we keep the sidewalk on the left. Then we get to the intersection, cross over, sidewalks on the right. You know, it's just, I think the plan that got proposed right now is the beginning of a good long-term solution to a lot of the issues up there.
Where do you cross? Do you cross at Center Road, or do you cross at the golf course? I'd like to let the
Fire
fire
chief?
chief
Oh,
speak.
sure.
It's okay. I'll get to you later, Mr. Clark.
Thanks. The only comment the fire department would have on this, and this is what we inquired about early on into this, was the access to the golf course parking lot, but the way they have it, we wanted it reduced because we knew it was unsafe, but we also wanted to keep it wide enough so a truck could fit into the parking lot to access the building, which they've done all that in this design. Also, the other concern we had was the Tanyard Road, but they've actually made that more at a left angle, so you have to come out so you can see both left and right when you stop. So I actually think that design's a lot better. It's probably better for the people of that neighborhood as well, because the cars are going to have to slow down more to come to a stop there and look both ways before they exit. Right now, it just kind of goes right into the intersection, and you can kind of blow through it if you're not paying attention. So that was the fire department's two concerns, but they've both been addressed in this current plan.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep.
Mr. Clark.
Mr. Chairman, as I mentioned, we have a Complete Streets Committee. I am prepared right now to give you the names of the members if that's necessary. I understand that we apparently have a Shared Streets Committee. Is that the case?
I believe planner had stated that this is under the purview of the Board of Selectmen, not the...
Oh, okay. I've been to a number of your meetings. I hadn't recalled the appointments to such a committee or mention made in terms of who would serve on. So something of a mystery to me. Again, I am wearing hearing aids, so I may have missed something here. But if you could identify the members, all of the Board of Selectmen then are Shared Streets.
I can,
The Safer Streets.
Mr. Chairman, the Complete Streets Committee is a requirement of the Complete Streets Grant, meaning that under that grant, a committee has to be formed. The planner suggested the planning board may take on that role in order to prioritize Complete Streets funded projects throughout town. Once that's completed, the Complete Streets Committee has done their work.
Oh, we no longer exist.
No, you still exist, you just have completed your work.
We exist, but our work is completed, so why do we exist? I mean, it doesn't make sense. We should be, I was on an Open Space and Recreation Committee, which has since lapsed and gone the way of the buffalo, so to speak. We're no longer functional. Very early on, Mr. Chairman, I apologize if I'm interrupting, we met with CMRPC a number of times to discuss any number of issues and intersections specifically in the town of Dudley and things that could be done. It's helpful, and I'm sure we appreciate that, the Shared Streets has come on board, but I think there's opportunity for us to work together as opposed to our working in silos and separating.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mr. Ruda?
So, Mr. Chairman, this is an example of us not working in silos or separated. We're having 2 public hearings on this project. Everybody's had the ability to weigh in. The Shared Streets Committee is the highway commissioners. Then Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Marcy, Mr. Siganovich, Mr. Landry, and Mr. Johnson. That's according to the grant funding program. It's under the purview, as Bill mentioned, of the highway commissioners. Mr. Sullivan, Mr. Marcy, Mr. Siganovich, Mr. Landry, and Mr. Johnson. Unless there's gonna be some new information about this program, I see no reason to delay it. If we have other experts that are gonna come in and say that there's a problem with it, that's great, let's bring them in. But all the subject matter experts here in this room tonight unanimously are saying that this is the way to go.
And I feel good that a number of people came here. I know I've said Tanya Road a lot, I'm gonna say it again. A lot of people came, they sat right there, they objected to the gate, they objected to their road being cleared. They told us, Hill, how are we gonna get out? We solved that. We solved that. And I saw a big thumbs up back there. See, we heard you. Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the plan shown today on the Airport Road grant.
Motion?
Is that the way you want to word it?
That's fine with me.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Mr. Marcy?
I did hear Bill say that, you know, the layout of the intersection is set, but, you know, we can still like make changes as we go as far as where the sidewalks go. Did I hear that right, Bill? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you both for coming again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I thank everyone tonight.
Yep.
Yes, everyone.
Discussion.
Good government isn't always clean and nice and squeaky and such. Next on the agenda, Board of Selectmen vote to release escrow funds in the amount of $10,070.23, account number 0410-000-5580-4115, Country View Estates to repair/complete sewer pump station on Eisenhower Drive. What are we doing here, Mr. Ross?
Mr. Chairman, we've been asked by the commissioners to table that for tonight. There's more information required.
We'll table that. Next on the agenda,
Mr.
Board
Chair,
of...
real quick,
Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Ruda, when this comes back up, I would just like to know existing balance once this amount is expended. I don't know if that drains that account, because I took a ride up there the other day, and as we're getting into the acceptance process, I'm gonna like to see what not Jeff Murray, the other Jeff brings up, because that road hasn't had a lot of attention through the years, and I don't wanna see the town absorbing a road that requires some kind of major work in the next, pick a window. I'm not a highway guy, but I noticed there was some cracking, and I'd like to know how much money's left, and before we get the acceptance, what we got going forward, if that's okay.
Sounds good. Do you need a vote for that, or?
No, I'll make sure we address it.
Excellent. So that's being tabled. Next up, Board of Selectmen vote to approve debt exclusion ballot question for capital projects approved by voters on 9/6/22 for Dudley Charlton Regional School District, or take any other action relative thereto. Is this the roofs, Mr. Ritter?
It's the, Mr. Chairman, it's the roofs. It's the roofs, the alarm panels, the public safety equipment such as radios and cameras. That was voted on September 22nd at the ballot to approve the spending on the district's part. And now we have to determine how best to pay for it. The first payment due is about $385,000, which will be part of the FY25 assessment for the school district.
Mr. Marcy?
Do we have a final amount yet on this?
I think we're about to get that. Mr. Carmignani?
Where do we want to begin? We have the district had a Zoom meeting. We had some options as to how we'd like to repay this. They're moving forward with an option. The capital portion, which will be part of the assessment for the school, 348,000 and change. And we're paying it out up until 2039. So we're figuring out how to pay for 25 through 2039 and how best to do that. I brought a little bit of information. I didn't know if something was being presented. I'll start with a few numbers that I think are important. I don't know how far back we want to go, but for argument's sake, the DE1, the debt excluded amount, the amount that goes on top of that tax base each year. So when a project starts and finishes, it's sort of added right onto the top, but it's not permanent. So it's to pay for these capital items that have a specific endpoint. So in addition to the taxes, and it's not tied to the taxes other than it was added onto the total amount levied, if you go back to 2020, $1,552,000 was the DE1 number. 2021 was $1,210,000. Next year, $1,183,000. If we go out to 2023, $1,140,000, so $1,183,000 down to $1,140,000. It's similar. We go to 2024, we dip down to $803,000, and then sort of the practice number, the placeholder for 2025 coming up is $1,010,000. So going back to previous years, 2020, where you had $1,500,000 plus in debt on top, the year after that $1,200,000. So historically, money has come off but not been added on. For argument's sake, if you took this year's levy, kept a couple of constants, meaning what we levy today, we add on the first year payment of $384,000. We're going to move about 2.4% increase on the tax rate. That's with no other increases, no other changes to anything else. So I thought that was a pretty good number to start with. That's essentially the question. And your 384 is sort of your high water mark because the next year it goes down to 298. So inside of one calendar year, you've reduced it by 1/7. And then it'll decrease all the way down. There is also, you'll dip below 200,000 by 2030.
So, I guess my question is, I'm looking at this,
Mm-hmm.
and what's circled is $3,067,950.31. Is that what this vote is to debt exclude? Or-
Over the period of time, correct.
Okay, so we are not voting each individual year.
Correct.
348, 150, 288, 5. We're debt exclude, we're taking a vote to debt exclude this, but every year from 2025 to 2039, there'll be an additional amount added to it?
Reduced from it.
Reduced from it. Got it. Mr. Sullivan?
Right, just to kind of piggyback, that's like your mortgage. As you reach that break point where you're paying less interest, more principal, and I just took the big picture. We talked about this when the project was proposed, excuse me, and passed. Source of funding was always gonna be an issue, because the schools made it clear, and I'm sure they'd make it clear if they were here, I don't wanna speak for them. They made it clear they're not gonna take the funds out of their operating budget. So for a debt exclusion or another mechanism to fail, we have to take it out of our operational budget, correct?
It has to come out of our operational budget to pay that portion of the assessment.
Correct. but
Either way.
In the absence of any kind of outside
Right.
debt exclusion.
Mhm.
That
And this
comes
is-
right out of our general budget.
And this is a debt exclusion, not an override. When this
Correct.
goes away, the tax rate reverts back to where it was.
And Rich, the term's 15 years proposed?
No, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, 2024 to 2039 is 15 years.
Okay. It just looks so small.
Yeah. So it was a noble project that needed to be done. Now we need the same forward-thinking mechanism for funding.
Anyone? Yes, Mr. Carmignani, I apologize.
Nope, not a problem. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So previously, there was a sewer line that went from the schools, and that was a similar debt exclusion. Your field renovations are currently on there. There's a component of what is paid to the school district, the capital that is excluded. Bay Path, Southern Worcester County Regional Vocational School District has a piece on there as well. They did their renovation several years ago. And it's declining over time. I believe it will change for enrollment depending. But this pays for something that's necessary, something that was voted by the member towns, and when it's done, it will be done. The project is completed, and the town's obligation fulfilled. It comes off the tax rate.
Anyone have any other questions?
No, Rich, sorry, Mr. Chair.
No, go right ahead, Mr. Sullivan. Go
We
ahead.
had a discussion a couple of years ago, I forget what project, I think it was the ladder truck. And you, very helpful when you came up with, it's okay to have a certain amount of debt coming off and going on because it helps maintain a steady and constant tax rate. You don't see a big peak, big valley, and, or to quote former president, bada bada boom, then bing. You want to try to keep it constant. So it makes sense.
Mr. Sullivan well said. There is a component of the taxes that should be for these larger projects. It should remain stable. I had read off some of the numbers. Goodness, I can go back to, 2005 if you'd like to, but reasonably, if going back a handful of years, you are correct. There should be an amount that remains stable. If it changes a little bit, then that's okay, but the idea is there should be an identifiable component. All of management's efforts should be to maintain something similar for future years.
Rich, so figuring this new number in with all the existing borrowing, do you have a sense of what the rate would be? Fair
It's
question.
going to be a 2.4% increase if you held everything else equal. So at the end of the day, values are going up, but the amount you raise is going to be the same, so that's going to tell me that your tax rate is going to go down. I can demonstrate that you're increasing 2.4% more based on this year. So next year, your new growth and 2.5, or your new growth and your 2.5, according to the pro forma sheet on the DE1, was 339,000. So I didn't even factor that in there. So the more you add to what you are levying is reducing the percentage increase.
Right, but based on the data we have now, this year, do we know, is it still?
If you want me to multiply out the 1048 against the 2.24, it came up to 1073, but I would never hang my head on that number given there's going to be too many other moving parts. I'll give you an example. We had gone through what was projected with the handout and the overrides, and if you did all of the math, there were some houses, particularly one on Airport Road, Mr. Chairman, where the estimate and your actual tax bill were within $20. So the estimation process is fair. I think if you were to come through and say it's going to be 25% and it comes out being 5% or vice versa, it's basic math. You raised without your DE1 $15,683 in taxes, and you're looking just to add that $384,000 on top of it, which represents the 2.44%. So the more that's going to be raised in the successive year is going to reduce the percentage.
Okay.
Oh, go right ahead. I just want to make sure I get the fire chief in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, the suggested motion for tonight, Mr. Ruda, do you need this tonight? Or can we wait? Because the first question everybody's gonna ask is what I just asked Mr. Carmignani. And I would like to see, you know, I would like to know exactly what we're looking at here before I even think about, you know.
Mr. Chairman, through
And
you.
they asked to get this.
You're
$3 million total with $385,000 in year one. No, 348, sorry. Dudley's portion. And what that does to the tax rate, how many cups of coffee, as Mr. Johnson always likes to say. That's what people wanna know. How do we
okay.
get to that?
I think your assessor would wow you with her presentation. I did my calculations. I have the DE1. I'm happy to share with her and give you a solid approximate of what it's going to be. But I would defer to her for the specific.
Because I just don't feel, based on all that we've gone through, that we can't ask people to do, even though it's a noble project we have to pay for, you still don't want to go into a project like this without those hard numbers.
This is how to pay for the bill, Mr. Chairman. We have the obligation. I think your town administrator spoke well when he led with, in September of '22, this project was approved. So we agreed to the project. The school has gone through, effectuated the project. Now we're looking to pay for it, or pay for less than what was approved. So they had gone through and were able to be thrifty in part of what they did. And we're trying to, the town of Dudley is trying to figure out how to pay for their portion. I wouldn't speak how the other member town would, but this is a concern. We've done this previously, and I'm happy to give this a thumbs up.
I'm not, excuse me, Rich and Carrie, we're not saying we should or shouldn't do this. We absolutely should do this. We need to pay for it. But if you're gonna ask somebody to help pay for it, you need to have numbers. That's all I'm saying. I know, thank you for the estimation. That's a good start, but I don't know how you guys feel. Don't we need like something a little bit more concrete?
Because if we don't give it, someone will compute it and it could be inaccurate.
And then that'll perpetuate if we have learned nothing in the last year. That's all I'm saying.
That's all. If it's the assessor, it's the assessor. We should be able to tell people, if, fork in the road, if you say yes to this, this is what it's going to cost you and this is what it's going to pay off. If you say no to this, this is what it's going to cost you to do it the other way. That's what we should do. What happens if I vote yes? What happens if I vote no? That's what everyone wants to know.
Right.
Is that where you're getting at?
Yes, but even before, like, one of the other pieces of feedback that we got was, before we even let the people decide, which is our default action on most things, let people decide, which is, I still stand by
Come up
that.
and
We
sit
should-
now.
we
I'll
should-
shoehorn you in
We
here.
we should still have that data before we
Sorry, I
consider
just-
putting something on.
No,
ballot.
I'm trying to shoehorn you in
Can
here.
I-
You know.
I really
I was
am.
talking.
I'm sorry.
You know, I just believe we need, before we put something, agree to put something on a ballot, we need to have all the pieces of data, available. I think that's what we need to do.
I'm just gonna, before the chief, I'm gonna jump in, and I appreciate Mr. Carmignani's offer
Yeah.
to talk to the principal assessor and she should be able to firm up the numbers. But I'm also gonna say, Rich's quick calculation is probably, based in today's snapshot, with the 2.4, that came out to 1070.
Right.
Is probably gonna be accurate to within a few pennies, but I'm also 100% of the mindset. Lisa can probably give us that number. I'm not gonna put pressure on her, pretty quick. She sits down with the numbers, it's stuff they do all the time. An impact of this much on taxable parcels, on today's value. We'll get today's snapshot, no guarantee the tax rate will be the same next year, but it'll give people a benchmark or a baseline to say, okay, in today's dollars, if I had to pay extra, it's 30 cents.
Right, that's all.
Right, no, I agree, just saying, we'll
That's
just
all. I
get,
mean,
get that number from Lisa,
that's
and
it.
we can hold off another week, 'cause we'll meet next week, right?
Yep, no problem.
So,
I just think,
No, go right ahead.
I just think
Mr.
that's,
Marcy.
that's the prudent thing to do.
So give me clear direction, Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
not the chief,
I'm sorry.
sorry, I'm not the chairman.
No, I'm just trying to,
I'm just saying, I just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Historically, people will approve debt exclusions, but I listened, and I've listened to this for 13 years. Not anybody in particular, but when we discuss this, we talk over people's heads. You got to speak in layman's terms, and I'm trying to piggyback off what Mr. Marcy said. They want to see a raw number. They know a debt exclusion goes away. It's not permanent, so they'll probably approve it. Most times they do. Debt exclusions have a good pass rate. But they want to see, what am I paying year one? They want to see a number. What are my taxes going up year one? 384. From the sounds of it, it's going to go down every year. This first year, they'll see the biggest increase, but they want to see a number. And you've got to explain it like that and show them that, because I don't think they understand some of the way it's being explained, that it makes it sound like it's way worse than it is.
thank you, Chief. From what I'm from what I'm gathering from what Mr. Marcy said, he doesn't sound comfortable to vote on this tonight. Would it make sense if we, I think it's reasonable to think we could have a number by next meeting of what this would cost the resident, that fork in the road. If I vote yes, this is what it's gonna cost me. Can this wait till the next meeting?
It can wait, we have time, Mr. Chairman.
Good.
Any board members have any thoughts? Is this something we have to thread the needle today?
As long as we keep perpetuating the idea that you're gonna get, like Mr. Sullivan said, a snapshot then of what the cost would be then, without retiring debt and Rich making his adjustments and
Got that.
everything
If we
else.
can get a number by next meeting, I'd rather wait till next meeting.
Absolutely.
And it's Monday, so.
Mr. Carmignani?
Yes, the one point that needs to be made is that we know for 2025, a bill for 384 is coming on top of what the school assessment is going to be. And I think that's the important part. If the board wishes to have the assessor provide something, absolutely, because I believe this needs to move forward. The bill is coming, how we pay for it is the concern. So I guess that's the one takeaway from here. It's not, should we do this project? It's how we are going to pay for the 384 if it doesn't go through.
Yeah, and that's what I think. People need to know, if I vote yes, this happens. If I vote no, this happens. With specifics of
But
what
what-
it would cost.
But what's different, Mr. Chairman, is us backing that up to this stage before we even put it on a ballot, which I think is the right way to move going forward.
I agree. It doesn't make sense to vote for something you don't know what you're
Correct.
voting for. It's like buying a car sight
Correct.
unseen.
Payment unseen.
Although that's done nowadays, I guess.
Oh, AI.
Anything else on that? Nothing else. Next on the agenda, town meeting warrant. Open 3/11/2024 at 9 PM. Closed warrant March 22nd, 2024 at 9 AM.
So moved.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Town administrators report. Do you have more for us, Mr. Berta?
Just a few things quickly, Mr. Chairman. I've been mentioning the green communities kickoff meeting was coming up. I just kind of want to go over those projects real quick. For the Dudley Highway Department, we're going to do some weatherization. The total project cost for that is $17,722.50. $4,430 of that is grant funded. $13,292 is from utility incentives. Zero cost to weatherize the Highway Department. Another one for the Highway Department is a heat pump installation, which is, of course, a more efficient way to heat. That will be paid, that total project cost is $44,118.76. It will be paid $35,401.26 will be from the Green Communities Grant, with the balance of $8,717 from utility incentives. That'll be zero cost to upgrade the heating system at the highway. The fire department's going to have some weatherization done, $30,000 worth, and that will be entirely grant funded, $30,798.67 at zero cost. And the same at the library, that's going to be weatherization, $19,000 worth of weatherization at the library, $4,761.39 is grant funded, $14,285 through utility incentives. And then finally, the grant will cover the cost of CMRPC to do all the grant administration for us. So zero cost with all those benefits will be coming over the next month or two. And as the weather warms up, to put in the heat pumps.
Thank you, Mr. Rhoda.
The other thing that we're applying for is a cyber grant under the Municipal Local Cybersecurity Grant Program. And that will allow us to roll out multi-factor authentication throughout the town, which is, as some people may know, is a vastly improved security measure for when somebody logs on to the town network. They'll have to have another way to authenticate that that's them logging on. We'll be able to enhance some remote access security appliances, but most importantly, we've been talking about this since the original grant. Incident response and cyber emergency plan will be updated. Our backup center is the fire department, and we'll actually do an exercise and a real disaster drill, which will include that if the town hall, for example, were to lose the network, how quickly we can get services back up and running at the fire department and bring the network back over at the fire department. And the chief has been helping us with that, as well as our security consultant. So that's a grant that we applied for on Friday. There's a CMRPC earmark, Mr. Chairman, that we were alerted to last week. As the board recalls, we're currently on a state tip sheet to fully replace the Brandon Road Bridge, but as we've heard multiple times, that could be years down the road. We did do some initial work through Chapter 90. We did some engineering to get us a cost of $1.1 million to put up an acro bridge, which MassDOT would donate to us. But of that $1.1 million, $172,000 would be for demolition. We've already demolished that bridge, trying to get ready for an opportunity like this. So that would take the cost under $1.1 million. Bottom line is that we've been speaking with CMRPC, Bill and I, and this may be a good earmark project to get the rest of that money for the temporary bridge. So we're going to be working that as much as we possibly can. Of course, I'd like to thank Representative Marcy in advance for championing this.
I heard it.
In a few short
I
weeks.
heard you.
So, finally, Mr. Chairman, actually two more things. Municipal finance clerk, that 12-hour-a-week position that the board authorized to be shared between the treasurer collector's office and the town accountant's office, that's been posted. I think we've gotten 2 applications or 3.
Just got 3.
Got 3, and we've forwarded those off this afternoon to Rich and to Debbie for them to take a look at.
Okay.
To see if there's anything actionable on their part. So we're moving forward with that. And then finally, Mr. Chairman, I received word this afternoon from Superintendent LaMarche that one student has applied for Norfolk Aggie School as a freshman. So just to put this on the radar screen, that's about $27,905 budgeted line item that'll have to be included for FY25. He's going to review the application and let us know. There's no word on the transportation cost. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Ruda. Any questions, comments?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next on the agenda, departmental communication. Mr. Gatsky, I haven't heard from you this evening. Could you go first?
So it's just been usual. I've been having the guys out patching holes. Got a lot of holes out there with the weather. We're gonna be getting ready to do that. Start working on that rail trail grant, the paving. So as soon as this weather, hopefully towards the end of the week, get down there and start cleaning that up with the guys. We've been working on a little bit of plow damage. Got a bunch of new guys, so we had a bunch of plow damage out there. So we've been just working on that with the weather changing. And just trying to get the guys, used to it. Work them in, train them up. So, that's about it.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sullivan.
MJ, how do we stand with staffing down there?
I think we may need, I gotta look it over. I think we might be one short or so. But I can work with that right now. Try to get them all trained up. Winter's over, hopefully. So, like I said, we'll be doing street sweeping, and I gotta train new guys on street sweeper. I gotta train new guys on catch basin. We have a bucket truck. I have to train them on that. So plus I'm doing this. So I only have a couple new older guys there helping out training. So I've been jumping all around.
The reason why I asked the question, Mr. Chair, was people have been reaching out, and a few guys got an EPUB. What's gonna happen? I said, well, patience, because we're ramping up to full staff, and as MJ said, they're out there, they're pecking away at the punch list, and if there's an issue, just reach out to the highway department, and I'm sure MJ or somebody will get back to you with some kind of work.
Yeah, I just take notes down. It's hard because they don't know the routine of things.
Right.
It's gonna take them a while. We had a crew that was there 5 years, most of them, so they knew what to do. The newer guys don't really know what, so we have to show them what to do.
Right.
That's the difference. So it takes us a little longer.
Excellent.
I can't just send somebody out to go do something because they don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense.
Thanks, MJ. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. George, do you have anything?
Just a quick thing, you all got your rave alert on Sunday. We had a small sewer release on West Main. Nothing, no area that's commonly pronged by that. We are working on the problem, which is going to take a while, but you might see more of that as it comes along with the type of rain we keep getting. The pipes keep backing up, and it's usually that one area that shows it. So there will be other alerts if necessary, just so people know.
Thank you, George.
Fire Chief, do you have anything?
Just one thing, this is a little off topic from anything we talked about tonight, but I would just like to remind the townspeople, if they have a boat, a canoe, kayak, any kind of water device, make sure it's secured, moored or secured on their lawn, because we had a call today where a canoe was overturned in the pond, and we have to dispatch an extraordinary amount of resources to ensure somebody's not in the water. It involves activating the district dive team. And the only reason I bring this up, it hasn't just happened here, it's happened 4 or 5 times to some other surrounding towns in the district. And you're talking multi-day event to search ponds with divers and things. So I would just please implore people to secure their boats, especially on days it's windy.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Police Chief, do you have anything?
Just real quick, National Grid is still working on replacing the gas main on Dresser Hill number 2. I apologize in advance for anybody for the inconvenience, but they're working pretty much in the middle of the road. We got to shut down the road, so there's detours. Eventually, they're going to work their way up to North Schoolhouse, and then eventually Dudley Salvage Road. I anticipate that's going to be a whole year project. And also, Officer Dylan Reaney has completed his requirements that were given by the board upon his conditional appointment. Today was his first day as an FTO in the FTO program, and I anticipate 10 to 12 weeks on that program, and hopefully he'll be on his own. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you. Mr. Carignani, do you have anything?
Good evening. I'll keep it brief. Last week was busy. Lot went on. We had our bills due. We had an election. Congratulations. Everyone and their uncle cycled through, and everyone was amazingly patient. So everybody who had to make their way through the town hall at one point or another, or faced a screen that was closed because so many things were being done, I appreciate it. Both internally and externally, there were a lot of people who didn't quite realize what was going on. So we have a great community. There were no screaming matches, nothing like that. So good sense of community. Hopefully everybody got everything they needed to paid, and I'll spare you the rest. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks, Rich.
Next up, student representative.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I have a lot of sports updates today. So spring sports begin next Monday, which I'm very excited about because it will be my 3rd year playing tennis, and I'll be the captain this year, which is awesome. And then last week on Tuesday, the boys basketball team ended their season during the 2nd round of states at a game against Malden Catholic. But all in all, they had a very impressive and good season, so congratulations to them. Similarly, the girls ended their basketball season on Friday, March 1st against Dartmouth, but they were still able to make it in states, which I believe is the first time they've made it to states in a few years, so that's also very awesome for them. And then the National Honor Society induction of new members will be next Thursday, so a very exciting event for all the new sophomores and juniors that will be inducted. And then parent-teacher conferences were held last Thursday. My mom didn't go, but that's okay because I told her I'm a senior, so she doesn't need to go anymore. And then lastly, the cheer team went to states this past weekend, and they placed in the top 3 for the first time in 10 years. So a lot of exciting and good things going on for our sports teams. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, thanks.
Next up, board members' comments. Mr. Sullivan.
Mr. Chair, pretty brief tonight. As some of you may or may not know, we have St. Patrick's Day right around the corner. Enjoy the holiday responsibly, and as most of you are probably aware, there's only 2 kinds of people in the world, those that are Irish and those that wish they were. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all.
See what I'm wearing today.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Johnson.
I think the conversation earlier about approving a Earth Day event, other than my immediate bias for the team running that event, I'll abstain from that. But you know, picking up trash with the Boy Scouts for the last umpteen years, and then doing Earth Day in some areas that need some attention is pretty important volunteer work for townsfolk. So probably dig deep and get out there and pick up. Your materials will be available at the town barn. So help make this town beautiful. Get out there and pick up some trash.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Landry?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I want to thank everyone for getting involved this evening, keeping the ball moving forward, letting us know how you feel, where you are. I want to thank the town administrator for his endless hours of work, keeping us pointed true north. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Mr. Marcy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have anything new tonight. Just want to thank everybody for their time tonight. Echo Mr. Landry, we did push the ball forward on a bunch of items. And look forward to the next meeting so we can keep going.
Thank you, Mr. Marcy. I will refrain from any comments this evening. We are going into executive session. Hoping the clerk can...
Mr. Chairman, I move to convene into the executive session under MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigation position of the public body, and the chair so declares, not to reconvene in open session.
Second.
Motion and a second, roll call vote.
Mark Landry, aye.
Jay Johnson, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
Tom Marcy, aye.
Gary Sigenovich, aye. Good night, everyone.
Night, everybody.